Hey, thanks for joining us here at Hanging Out with K-Dubs podcast. Tell us how we're doing, or maybe be in a future podcast episode. Hit us up at hangingoutwithkdubs at gmail.com. Up next, the latest episode. Thanks for listening. There we go. Now we got it.
So no different than part counter then, huh?
God. Pushed the wrong button there a ton of times. It was never not pushing the right button.
Well, and it happens, It's no different being out there looking up parts in the shop, or it doesn't matter what you're doing, It always happens. You push the wrong button, you go, oh, shit.
Son of a bitch.
Yep.
My favorite is when you went through like a whole pick list of parts.
Yeah.
And you hit the cancel button. You're like, I just spent 40 minutes looking this shit up, and now I got to do it again.
Yeah, you're sitting there going, okay, I got this quote up for this person, and it's like, oh, wait, I got to say, that was delete. Oh, no.
God damn it.
Yep. Back to the drawing board. That's where I've gotten good about finding the save button, to where if all of a sudden my brain goes somewhere else, you click that save. And luckily we figured out how to do that to where everyone's got their own pick list.
Oh, really?
So that now you can save it and it's just general and anyone can see it. Well, anyone can see any pick list.
Yeah, like before.
Right.
So you saved. So for the viewers out there, if you're in the parts program and you need to make a list of parts, you make a list of parts and you can save that or delete it, whichever button you push or don't push.
Yeah, and you go through and it's really a nice system because you can have everything up there, and then all of a sudden, sometimes it can take a little while before you get your answer on a quote, and it might be 3-4 days, and you're like, oh man, what all did I quote on that job?
What was the name of that person?
Well,
what a piece of equipment do they have?
Usually you remember that stuff. It's, okay, how much time did I put that it takes to do that job?
True.
And then what were the parts totals, and then going back through and verifying that you got all your correct parts on the ticket.
Yeah.
And you're going back through and you're looking at it and you're going, oh, yeah, it's going to be a little tight on this one here. I better hustle up a little bit. So,
Doesn't the service manager, supposed to catch that stuff?
well, he should, but, it doesn't always happen.
No, you can't be perfect and everything.
No. But that's the fun part is you got that reference to go back to, and it makes it real easy to go back and look at that so that all of a sudden you can jog your memory even a couple days later, and you're like, okay, yep, we'll get that job done. And,
Totally remember that one now.
Yeah, now I remember. Oh, man. But why am I getting to the point where I'm starting to forget this stuff that quickly?
Yeah, you're not that old, Max.
No, well, we're getting there,
Nah.
It ain't the years, it's the miles.
Well, I suppose that's true. I never really thought of it that way. Yeah, I suppose hard miles over bumpy roads
Yeah.
makes the old vehicle don't last quite as long.
And never, no one's ever accused me of being quick as far as coming up with stuff, picking up what someone's putting down. Never the fastest at that. So, as you get a little bit older, that gets a little bit slower. So I wasn't quick to start with, so it's kind of on that decline.
Are you guys super busy up there?
Lawn and garden's been so-so.
So get your shit in now, guys, before March.
Yeah, now if you want to get your stuff in, get a lawnmower ready to go for spring, now's the time. But as far as ag goes, I've been there 25 years. It's the busiest I've seen the shop. Yeah, 25 years.
Holy
full time.
Are they throwing you like a big party or something?
No.
25, that's a huge milestone.
Well, and of course...
maybe you ought to throw the party for yourself.
Well, I tend to do that. Usually it seems like about once a week, maybe once every couple of weeks. There happen to be a couple cold ones that show up after work. So, no, but actually the cool part is with the new merger, of course, a lot of things changed.
Yeah, which was... a lot of it was probably needed.
Yeah, and the big thing is that they pay a lot more attention to your service tax.
Oh, good.
They appreciate us guys a little bit more than previous
said owners.
Yeah, than previous regimes, I guess.
It's a good way to do it.
And the biggest thing is of course vacation time increased. There were a lot of things, and but the big thing is that all our times. I want to say time served. It's not time served. It's our years of service.
Yeah, but time served kind of feels right.
It depends on which way you look at it at the job, but they actually went through and honored all of it. So from the time I started, so actually it was a shock to me because, of course, you know me, this time of year, you can actually hear a little bit. I'm still coming out of a cold.
Yeah, it's that time of year.
And all of a sudden I was sick here at the beginning of December, and come to find out, they
beer burp.
Yeah, they sent they sent someone up from headquarters to honor me and Cindy.
Oh, no kidding.
And
that's awesome.
I think Cindy had 20 years service, and I had 25 full time. And there was all of a sudden I come back to work, and I was gone for a couple days. I come back and I get called in the office and go, "Hey, we got something for you up here." I go up there.
Oh, crap.
And I'm like, let's see, did I get my pink slip?
Am I getting my written? Get the fuck out of
here. Let's see, you were gone for 4 days. You only had 1 day of sick time left. So, no, it was actually all of a sudden they hand me this leather bag, like a travel bag.
Really?
And I'm like, well, this is pretty cool. Well, and on the tag, so like if you're traveling somewhere, your tag that identifies what it is, if you're going to be getting on a plane or whatever, it actually on the back side of it says AHW, and it has my name in the leather.
Oh, that's
tag.
Cool.
It says Maxwell Wilson, 25 years of service. I'm sitting there like, I haven't even worked for these guys for a year. And here I'm getting this nice gift.
Keep that shit coming, boys.
I'm like, hey, this is pretty nice.
I want a nice big stand walk-in fridge now.
Well, I'm sitting there like, some places, you might get a little party like you were discussing earlier, or maybe a couple cold ones. They might buy you a pizza, for your anniversary or whatever. But it was appreciated.
Absolutely.
And whenever you go through many years of service working at the same place, I started when I was 18. I worked
and then went through college, and
I went through 2 years of the program down at Kishwaukee College.
Yep.
And then started full time. It would have been 97 was when I started full time, spring of 97.
Time flies.
And the amazing thing is, where were you in 1997?
Oh, I was probably about 6th grade. Something like that.
And
5th grade.
And that's a tough part for me now, because I still see myself as being one of the younger guys in the gig. And
not so much anymore, Max.
No,
you are an established veteran.
Well, I'm getting to that point where all of a sudden we get these younger guys starting, and, well, what year were you born? And this happened probably about 10 years ago already. What year were you born? Well, I was born in 1995. I go, that's the year I graduated. And the best part is,
you're lying.
In 1997, when I started working, and it was Harvard Implement then.
Yep. Would have been.
There were 2 secretaries, and I remember going through the interview process, and I walk in the day I'm starting, and of course you go out. Back then, of course, it wasn't like it is now, where you had onboarding, all this computer stuff. You actually had to go in and sit with the secretary
and write out your resume.
Well,
and all
you had to fill out all the information. Now, nowadays, it's all on computer. You apply online.
2 clicks of a button.
They've got that information. They've already pretty well got you loaded into the system the day you start. Well, there, it was, you're hired. I'm like, okay, well, I got to give my employer right now 2 weeks notice. I'm that type of a guy that I'm not just going to leave my former employer high and dry.
Exactly.
So I start, and it's a Monday, and I show up, and here comes the secretary in, sits down, and she goes, "Need your birth date?" And I rattle off my birthday, and she goes, "That's the year I graduated high school." And so I set that as a benchmark in my head, that I officially know I've been in this too long. Or I've been,
when you're in her position now.
And all of a sudden, we have that new hire. And actually, if you don't mind, I'm actually going to mention the guy's name. Just because it's a mutual friend between all of us, because, of course, we all used to work together. It was Ryan Rasmussen. And he was the one that all of a sudden he goes, yeah, I was born in 95. I'm like, oh, no.
You hear that, Ryan? Now you got to come on here and tell your side of the story.
Yeah. Now you get to rat on me. So, but no, it's just one of those. It's amazing how, and in that time, how much stuff has changed.
Oh, yeah. I mean, well, just think about technology in the last 15 years.
Oh,
what's it going to be for the next 15 years? It's kind of scary a little bit to think about that. I mean, you just think about what these things have come from.
Mm-hmm.
You know, before my dad had, I remember when I was a kid, so it had been probably late 90s. He had them big old cell phone that he'd try to stick in his pocket like this, and the antenna's sticking out this
bricks.
far. Yeah. And that was in late 90s.
I remember the first service call I went on. And I ended up in I believe it was a 1982 GMC retired tire truck. It used to be a tire truck, and then it was our ag service truck.
That was the old, that was still there when I started, right?
Oh, yeah. It might have been just on its way out. Yeah, because that would have still been after the fire. And that was one of two trucks that got saved out of the fire.
I remember that old girl.
And, of course, it was 6.2 diesel, two-wheel drive.
Ballsy.
Oh, yeah. But back to the cell phone thing. I get in the truck. There is a two-way radio in the truck. And then there is the old suitcase, bag phone, cell phone thing.
Dealy that's in there.
That was still in there. And then the service manager hands me the old Motorola trapezoidal, flip the mouthpiece down. And I'm sitting there, of course, 18, 19 years old going,
how do I use this so much?
I understand the idea of the push button and how to dial and everything, but it's like, how am I using this wirelessly? I was not a tech guy going through school. Even when I went to college, they gave me DOS for Dummies because that was just starting. But yet the parts system that they were teaching us when I went to college was still the old card system.
Yeah.
And so computers...
What do they call that?
Well, they had the microfiche system.
Microfiche, that's what I was
But then
thinking.
as far as your inventory, it was all index cards.
Correct.
And as you pulled it out, there would be hash marks on it.
Yep.
And
took one of these
and you
whatever,
put it back. And how the guys ever kept track of that, because you put the card back when you were done with it. They did, but you got to remember, you were also trained by some of the old classic guys that went through that whole system and then had to go into the technology side. And they sit there and tell you, we've got a lot easier than we used to. Well, until you've actually gone through that system, you don't realize how easy it is. It has changed a lot in the years.
Well, that's good. That makes you guys a lot more efficient too.
Right. But it's amazing how they were efficient back then. And
things were simpler back then, though.
Yeah, you didn't quite have some of the hothead customers that come in.
Well, I'm not even talking customer-wise,
but no, there were a lot more farmers then.
There was.
But they were all smaller.
Right.
I'm not saying that time didn't mean something then, but things were it was slower.
Yeah.
People didn't get as excited because a part wasn't there today.
Yeah, most farmers back then, they probably farmed whatever they owned. Or this piece of ground next to me is up for rent. I'm going to rent it because it's right next to me. So they farmed 300, 400, 500 acres total.
Right, and that's back with the card system and everything. And by the time I was starting, there were starting to be some of the bigger farms.
Yeah.
But there weren't these guys that are running 10,000 acres.
Plus.
Back in 95, I would say a big farm was maybe running 5,000 to 6,000.
Yeah, I agree.
Now, you take that and go 25 years, look how far it's come and how much it's changed. And a lot of that is...
Yeah, now 5,000 is probably a little above average, but not a lot.
Well, and that's classified your probably mid-grade farmer. It's not your big farmer, but
I can agree with that.
That's a guy that you've probably got 2 or 3 people, maybe 4 people that are mainly involved, your main guys.
Yep.
And then maybe a couple of trucks. It's simple.
Or a part-time guy or a couple part-time guys.
Yeah. Yeah, you got the guys that are helping you out in the fall.
Or spring, or both.
Yep.
and that's it.
Yeah,
And
they're seasonal.
have fun the rest of the
Those are the guys
summer and winter.
where they're working a full-time job. When they get off work, they come out and they still enjoy the farming, but they don't have any skin in the game, but they're having fun doing it.
Yeah, and they're getting a little paycheck on the side.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
Little beer money, take mom out for dinner after
Yeah,
work.
there you go. Take mama out.
Yep. And
Which, by the way, shout out, Ma. Happy 60th.
yeah, happy birthday.
But no, that's the technology is just it's going to be really fun to watch that.
Well,
over
and
the
of
next.
course, that's the thing, I get to go work on the newest stuff from deer as far as lawn and garden goes, and some of the ag stuff I get to hear anymore. I used to keep up on that up until about maybe 5-10 years ago, and it was just progressing so fast that in my area in the lawn and garden, you can't keep up with what the ag side's doing.
No, you can't.
The best part was, and I'm going to go back now, when I was in high school, I had my ag teacher. Now, this is back in 94, 95, just as I'm getting ready to graduate. He told me two things, and we're going to touch on one of the other things a little bit later.
Okay.
But one thing he told me was by the year 2000, so 5 years after I graduate, we will be farming by the inch. The sub-inch. We'll have sub-inch accuracy for guidance. And I'm sitting there going, no way.
He's not far off.
No, it was there. It was
Starting.
in its fledgling, just coming hatched in the late 90s. Well,
Yeah, that's when they started GPS and all that stuff was just clearly getting introduced.
I sat there and I laughed at it.
Oh, I'm sure.
I'm like, no, what? You got to remember. And this is where we're going to go with something else, too. I was raised farming with technology that was old when I was being raised.
Oh, yeah.
And the best part is I'm still doing it.
Correct.
But the other thing he told me was knowing what I know about old tractors would never get me anywhere. and Kyle knows because he knows what we're going to get into with the rest of the story here in a little bit.
I got a feeling I know where this is going.
But he told me that in 95. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, yeah. And, at that point, Marengo, and I'll put it out there. I graduated from Marengo High School. When I was in FFA at Marengo High School, Huntley High School was the big agriculture school. Dairy farms. And it was on the decline then, but there were some big dairies down there yet.
There's still not big dairies, but there's still quite a few dairies.
There's still quite
there.
a few down there, but you get much east of 47.
Yeah,
there ain't much left.
No,
and we're talking dairies that were east of 47.
Yeah.
And
it's quite suburbia down there now.
Oh yeah, it's rooftops and
concrete.
And subdivisions, and places that guys are going down and still farming, but really don't like going down there if they have to with the big equipment. And
I know a few of those guys.
But he was at that point. It was us and Marengo. We were, of course, not me. Some of the other bigger farmers, the family farms, and that were getting bigger, and they were going through the growing pains and everything. And there were some of them that had 4 or 5 kids that were looking to get into the game, but it just wasn't in the cards quite yet.
Exactly.
And I remember talking with some of them, and of course, they'd sit there and make fun of me with my old equipment.
Well, here's the fun thing about old equipment is really all you need is a battery.
Yeah.
And it's running and driving.
Well, and that's when I talk about myself, I usually say I'm simple, and that's why everything I have is usually pretty simple because I can figure it out on my own.
Okay, so now that we're on that subject, how many old classic tractors do you have? Now, I'm not talking just John Deere 2-cylinders. I mean, I also know you have at least one IH.
Yeah, there's a few more than one.
Well, I knew of one for sure. The one you rebuilt the motor on here.
Yep. Yeah.
A couple years ago.
Yeah, and that was actually the first tractor my grandfather bought brand new. But so ends up, when he passes away, none of my uncles wanted the tractor. So they're like, well, knowing me and my dad were in the antique tractors and that, and Grandpa had the tractor restored. So it'd been sitting for years, and they go, you know what, let Max and Max have it, and they'll get it back up and going and running. So I got Grandpa's tractor, and I got to play with it. I mean, it's a super nice restoration for what my grandpa would like. Yes, it is super nice. You get up real close to it. It's so, but it's the prettiest tractor on my farm. I mean,
and you're not going to get rid of it,
no.
So it doesn't matter.
No, and Grandpa put brand new tires on it and everything. Well, we ended up, I had my 8-year-old son helping me. Now, my 8-year-old son drives that H on his own.
Nice.
Pulling a gravity box while I'm harvesting corn. This would have
Yeah,
been,
I think I've seen that on Facebook or something, Snapchat or something.
the fall would have been the fall before, so not
2022
would have been
21.
21. And I'm out harvesting corn, and he pulls up, parks underneath the auger. I dump on him, takes off. A couple days later, he's out, and this is the fun part: is 8 years old, been around the tractors enough to know what's going on, but he's sitting on the tractor, and I'm dumping corn on him, and I'm sitting up in the cab of the combine. I'm looking, and I go, man, that's awful lot of blow by. I don't remember that having that much blow by.
This is the H?
This is the Farmin H yet. And all of a sudden, he lets the clutch out to pull ahead because the wagon's getting full. And as soon as he lets the clutch, bang, 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 there's white steam, smoke, just stuff flying. And 8 years old, I'm up in the cab. He can't hear me. His mother is down with his uncle and another person.
Yeah, so he's basically on his own.
Yeah, but he's sitting on the tractor by himself.
Yeah.
And this kid had enough sense to push clutch in, and he grabs the throttle and throttle it back, and then he reaches up with his right foot and kicks the ignition switch and shuts the tractor off before it does any more damage.
Wow.
And I'm sitting there going, even at 8 years old, I'd been around stuff a lot.
Hell no, I wouldn't have done that.
Most kids aren't going to have enough sense to do that. And I was pretty proud of him at that point. Well, then, ever since then, he's been scared to death to drive the tractor, even after I went through and fixed it. Pretty much what it was is number 4 cylinder sleeve come apart and disintegrated while it was running.
Oops.
So number 4
Flopping
is just
around in there.
inside a bore, probably with about a 1/4-inch skirt clearance. So, but that tractor's back up and running. I've had it on a tractor ride since then. Actually took a load of beans to town this fall with it. Of course, made me a little nervous. You know, all of a sudden getting out on the road and it's getting towards dark. I got headlights, but no lights on the wagon.
Oops.
And running into downtown Marengo to go drop grain.
Yeah, that probably would have made me a little nervous too.
The best part was looking at the smiles of everyone at the grain elevator when they see a Farmin H come running through when guys are coming in with semis.
What the hell is that?
And then the look of frustration of guys as I get in line and drop beans, and they're sitting there going, really? You came in here with 40 bushel?
150 bushel?
No, I only had 40 bushel on. It was the last load of the year, and that was what it took to finish out because I was scared to put that 40 bushel on top of the 80 I had in the last load.
Well, you know, sometimes those tires on those wagons just ain't the best.
Well, and you know, it's my dad always taught me, you know what, you take what you've got at that moment. So I finished up on a Sunday, and they were talking rain. Even though I got a shed to keep the wagon in, it's like, you know what, if I can get them to town, get the wagon empty, you know what, if I go back out and it bites me in the butt sometimes because I overestimate what I got left, and then all of a sudden it's like, I got 20 bushel off of what was left of that field. It's like, or less. Believe me, I've taken it in, and actually they've gone to pull a sample out of the wagon, and they got to sit there. They knock like 4 times down the wagon before they finally get, and then I think when they get the sample out, they got like half of my load for the sample. So, but that's the fun is besides working at the dealership, I also farm.
This is your hobby farm.
Yeah, I farm 15 acres.
So you still haven't answered my question.
How many tractors?
Attaboy.
We'll get back to that. Right now, just to round things to a
Give
number,
or take a half a tractor.
if you count carcasses, there's right around 30 tractors on the property.
That's quite a few.
Out of the 30, I can probably take you down there and walk you around and start 8 of them without much problem. And those are the ones sitting in the shed. Are they perfect? No.
No.
Will they go out and do a day's work? Yes. Will I take them on a tractor ride? Not every one of them. They've got quirks, and the fun part is, of course, getting them to where they will do a full day's work. And you still get to enjoy it. My big thing is just sitting on the seat of that tractor and thinking about all the people that have sat in the seat of that tractor going,
man.
This is a job. This is work. This sucks. It's hot out here. It's terrible. This weather. Oh man, Dad's gonna kill me if I don't get this 40 acres cultivated today or whatever. And I'm out there going, I enjoy this.
Sun
I'm
shining.
getting a sunburn. Although in the fall, when it starts getting cold, sometimes it's not quite as much fun,
When you got to wear those insulated coveralls to get the corn off.
I guess you kind of say I'm a gentleman farmer, where if it's like below 40, it's kind of like
fair weather fan.
Yeah, I don't really have to be out there. If I've got the crop off, tillage can wait till the next spring. And it's the fun part with only doing 15 acres. Really, when you get your mind to it, you can knock that out in a hurry. Of course, it's just like farming on a bigger scale, though.
It is.
Something breaks, it's frustrating as all get out. And of course, a lot of that stuff, I can't just go
Call
to the
a dealer
dealership.
up and say, hey, I need
and run up and get it.
I need a cable clutch for my 50.
Yeah.
Probably not going to happen.
Well, the classic example is my bean combine. It was in 1957.
Nice year.
We had some sprockets that went out in the clean grain and the reclean elevator. Well, those sprockets are different, top and bottom, different size. Otherwise, it's the same tooth. They're cast sprockets. Well, I bought the last 4 that were in existence in the Deere system, and all of them were bottoms.
Oh, no.
Which was a bigger shaft. Well, I ended up...
Can you sleeve that?
Yep, that's what we ended up doing, was sleeving and welding the sprocket to a sleeve, putting the cotter pins in. It makes it work. But
it's not like you're going to go out and combine 400 acres this fall every fall. So this should get you by, I would think.
This last fall I did 12 acres of beans and then 3 acres of custom work. So, going big time there.
You're charging like $30 an hour, right? Or $30 an acre, because that's what the going rate is.
Yes, that's what I got paid.
Really?
I got $30 an acre. They gave me a $10 tip and a case of beer. But the best part is, of course, my farming, I don't typically farm with chemicals.
No.
So I row crop my beans this year, 38-inch rows, cultivated. Well, of course, we all know around beginning of June we got that big gully washer rain. And loose soil between 38-inch rows.
Just makes it go.
Oh, yeah. I had washouts between the rows and the headlands in one spot that were a foot and a half deep. Made it real interesting trying to combine.
I bet.
Combine them wasn't bad going with the rows, but once you got the headlands off, coming across there, I had to spend a half a day going out disking the headlands back down where it was smooth. And as I'm out there doing it, I'm like, why didn't you just drill these and spray them?
For the best.
But I didn't.
You live and you learn.
Right. So this custom job I end up with, I go down there, flat ground, no rocks, no weeds.
Yes.
So I can set the head of that 30 combine about 3 inches off the ground and just
roll.
Go. I got to look back once in a while to see if I'm catching dirt where there's a little bit of a ridge. And I'm going along. Took me about 3.5, 4 hours to do 3
that
acres.
Ain't bad.
So I'm moving. Got 58, 720 diesel on a 30 combine, 7-foot cut. I'm just going around. The big concern I had was whether the wagon that the client supplied, if it was short enough that I could get the auger to dump the beans, which it cleared by like 2 inches.
That's all you need.
Yep. And got them off and everything, and I think that was the first weekend of December. I actually went out and did the beans. No one else wanted to come back and finish them up for them, and they were later planted because they got washed out like twice. And when it's 3 acres, it's like no one wants to go through after doing corn and switch back to beans for 3 acres.
Get that platform, get the 30-foot platform out to go up there and pick 17 minutes.
Make 3 rounds, and you're done. So, I mean, it was kind of fun. Of course, I'm sitting there as I was getting done. I told him, I go, yep. I go, Wilson Custom Harvesting comes through again. And he just kind of looks at me and he just shakes his head. He kind of laughed. And I'm like, hey, you know, I appreciate being able, you asked me to come down and do it. I go, hopefully you're happy with what the sample was. And he goes, well, he's looking at me. He goes, well, there were some pods in there. I go, yeah. I go, I just haven't figured out how to get the pods out of there yet. I go, they're not bad, but I go, you get a couple green ones slip through. So
shit happens. You ought to just see if you can rent that 3 acres. And
well, I would, but I'll tell you what, it's just in the middle of someone else's vegetable property, and it'd just be a bear trying to get around in there.
Yeah, I can see that.
Now, I told him, I go, I'd be more than happy to come out if you had another 10, 15 acres next year that you needed knocked out. I'd be right down here. I go, not a problem, because I'll have all corn next year.
There you go. That's one way to look at it. So your teacher said that having the knowledge on them old tractors wouldn't get you anywhere.
Yeah, knowing what I know about old tractors would never get me anywhere.
And here you are one of the main spokesmen, whatever you want to call them. Commentators. There you go. That's the word I'm looking for Meecum's tractor auction. Okay.
Yeah.
How did that come about? Because I've been racking my brain on that. When you said that when we were going to do this, I've been sitting there like, how the hell did...
And you've known me for a few years, and you knew me before this even fell in my lap.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's why I was trying to pinpoint in my brain, like, I'm like, oh, fuck it, I'm just going to ask him.
Yeah. For those that don't know, Meecum Gone Farming, of course, is the antique tractor division of Meecum collector car auctions, Meecum auctions.
They're huge auctions, and they got some nice stuff, real nice.
Yeah. And, of course, the car side, they do auctions pretty much every month, and they're 3 to 4 day auctions, different locations all over the country. And
well, they got some nice classic cars on them things.
Yeah. This stuff.
Trust me, if I had Max Wilson money, I'd own one of them bad boys.
Believe me, Max Wilson money don't even buy the tractors at the auctions I go to. So the way, I guess I'll start with, I've known Dana Meecum, who owns Meecum Auctions.
Okay.
Since I was in probably 6, 7 years old.
Oh, so you've known the owner of Meecum Auctions.
I've known the family for years. Now, at that point, there was no Meecum Auctions.
No.
He was actually my farm league and little league coach in Marengo.
That's hilarious.
His oldest son, Dan, was a year behind me in school. So about the same time I'm getting told that knowing what I know about old tractors never get me anywhere, I buy my first tractor. And, of course, at that point, Dana Meecum starting an antique car auction business. And, I mean, just like all of us, you start out, it's baby steps, it's small.
Yeah, you can't just...
You don't blow up like that without starting small. Well, I remember Dan coming up to me in high school. Why are you buying old tractors? Cars and trucks, that's where the money's at.
Why not?
And I go, because I can't afford the old cars and trucks, but I can afford old tractors. And I go, we're talking back in the 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah, and especially, I don't think old tractors were quite as hot at that time.
No, the hobby was just really getting going at that point. But make a long story short, all of a sudden would have been, well, it's been 10 years now I've been working with them. So it'd be 12 years. All of a sudden, here's Dan Meecum standing at the parts counter at the dealership. And I go, Dan, what you doing? Oh, I come in to get some parts. I go, what you getting?
For what?
What are you getting parts for? Oh, I bought a couple old John Deere ARs. I go, really? I go, just kind of tinkering, monkeying around a little bit. And he goes, yeah. He goes, I'm starting to figure out there's some money in them old tractors. I go, there is, huh? And I go, so what you plan on doing? Well, I think I'm going to start an auction company and sell antique tractors and signs and toys, but I want to do it the way my dad does the car auctions. So I'm like, oh, okay, good luck. Well, at that point, there were some pretty big auction companies already that were jumping on the bandwagon and doing these auctions. And I'm like, well, good luck. If you need anything, let me know. I've been friends with Dan, like I said, since
forever.
Both knee-high to grasshopper. And sure enough, about a year later, he calls me up, Max, give me a hand. I go, what you need? Well, he says, you've been raised around this stuff. You've been around this all your life. I go, yeah, just old tractors. I go, just something me and my dad are into.
If you know what you're looking at,
right.
It's not a big deal.
So he brings me in to start teaching him what I know about the tractors. Well, it started out with they'd get tractors in for the next auction. He wanted me to walk around them and tell him what features were on them.
Now I remember this.
So I get to go up there and walk around and look at these
gorgeous
tractors that are, just beautifully restored. And it's like, I'm drooling, and I'm sitting there going, well, this is going to bring this. And I'm kind of giving them an appraisal of what they should bring, but also what options are on them. Well, this one's got new tires on all the way around, paint on it's real nice. It's an 830 with a pony start. I go, not quite as desirable as the electric starts, and just kind of coaching him on that stuff. Well, he's sitting there with legal pad. He's just writing this stuff down so he can advertise them. Well, then all of a sudden, the ball gets rolling. And of course, like I said, all this stuff, his dad, him, it starts with those baby steps. Anytime you're going to do something on your own.
Yeah, I think that's with any type of business that you want to do. You got to start, think for the future, plan for the future, but you don't just jump in full bore 100%.
No.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Some people have done it. They've been very successful.
Right.
But.
So he goes in real small, starts these auctions. We were selling in Walworth, right at the Meecum headquarters at the old grocery store there on the south side of town.
Oh, yeah. What the hell was the name of that grocery store?
Spiegelhaus, wasn't it?
No,
Euro Market or whatever.
Pick and Save.
Yep.
Pick and Save.
Yeah, it was it went through like 2 or 3 different names.
I only knew it as that.
Anyway, it ended up where Meecum Auctions had bought it, and that is, and people still to this day do not believe me when I tell them that is the worldwide headquarters for Meecum Auctions.
The little old town of Walworth.
Little town of Walworth. They started at Marengo and ended up moving to Walworth. And people go, that can't be. I go, no, that is. I go, as big of a company as that is, I go, that's there.
That's a big building, though.
Oh, yeah. And, of course, that's the fun part is, of course, you go in there, and, of course, it's not open to the public. So when you get in there, and me being, I'm just Max Wilson. And, anyone that knows me knows I'm very humble.
Agreed.
And usually pretty shy. So I've grown out of that with the whole thing of what's been going on the last 10 years.
Yeah.
But
agreed.
So the snowball starts going, and things keep getting bigger and bigger. Well, I'm sitting there helping get this stuff advertised. I start doing a little bit of writing for them, which I am not by any means a writer.
Starting your autobiography soon? Or?
No. But I go through it and I start doing that. Well, and all of a sudden, I get 2 weeks before an August auction. He goes, Dan calls me and he goes, Max, we're doing a TV show for the auctions. I go, oh, that's great, man. I'm proud of you, man.
It's taking off.
We're getting
Good
to that
deal.
point. You're getting that auction level. Getting that auction up that level, we're going to do a TV show. He goes, yeah, it's going to be on RFD Tv. I go, cool.
Sweet.
Cool. You're going to be my commentator. I go, no.
No.
I go, first of all, it's going to be awful damn boring with me up there talking tractors. I go, I'm going to sound like the guy from Ferris Bueller when they're doing roll call. Bueller. That's all people are going to hear. It's just me droning in the background.
Monotone.
Yep. And he goes, Max, I don't know anyone else that can talk tractors like you can, that I can just turn you on and go, do it.
Yeah.
He goes, you can. I go, yeah, but I don't have a microphone in front of me. I don't have a camera in front of me. I don't have all this other stuff going on. I go, that's just me and you talking. He goes, that's all it is. He goes, no different than the guy sitting there doing commentary for the Cubs or whatever. It's 2 guys sitting there. I go, that's the thing. You're telling me it's 1 guy. Well, we'll handle it. I go, okay. I go, hopefully it's someone who knows how to do TV, because
I'm gonna wing it.
I got a face for radio, so
Me too.
And
Screw it.
It's just taken off, and I guess we don't need to make a whole long story out of it. But 10 years, I've been doing it. It's fun. I mean, it was a lot more fun years ago. It's gotten to be where it's a little bit of a job now. But
yeah, I can see
you know
that.
what? And it's just like anything. You're doing it as a hobby to start out with, and then all of a sudden it starts taking off, and you're like, man, this is still fun. And you start seeing all these other things going on, and then all of a sudden it's like, maybe I don't need to be doing this anymore. But yet, once you get out there, and I have met so many great people.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I've got friends, and I call them friends, all over the country. And people that if I got a question on an antique tractor, and people come to me all the time because of my background with the antique tractors, because they know I fix my own stuff. And now all of a sudden I've got that network where if it's something I can't figure out,
you can make some phone calls.
I can make some phone calls. But it's also one of those where I'm also the type where I hate calling someone, because it's always like going up and tugging on Superman's cape. You don't do that. To me,
I'd do it.
And it's fun. I still enjoy it, because once I get out there and we get rolling on it.
Yeah, I'm sure, like, if you're going to travel out of the 4-hour radius or whatever, the drive sucks. I'm sure the hotel sucks. But the 5 minutes after you put that microphone on and you start talking tractors, especially with a guy that you have done it with, I'm sure you just kind of turn into a little kid again.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and there's some of it, you get – the big thing is, of course, there were so many a certain model tractors built. And that's the tough to get to part. The part that gets tough is we might have an auction where there's 500 tractors.
Yeah, and to remember what year each one of these are, or what options they had.
The nice part is of course, I've got the Meecum website in front of me, so a lot of my information I can get off of that, and it jogs my memory. I take some notes and stuff like that, but a lot of it's up here in this Rolodex. And
what is like walking 2-cylinder up there?
And it's one of those things that sometimes it clicks, sometimes it doesn't, and you're sitting there going, hopefully these two guys on either side of me don't try and throw me that softball right now, that question that should be a no-brainer.
And you are just stumped.
Nothing. It's blank. It's happened a few times. Luckily, those are the ones that don't make the air, because, the car auction. Now, this is the fun part. The car auction, they plan when they're going live what cars are going to be featured on the show. On the tractor side, we're filling up, we're taping it. We do 2 hours live on typically a Saturday. We know what's generally going to fall in at 2 hours. Depends on how fast the auctioneers get going. But we sit there and you're going along. We start at 9 in the morning, and I may not get out of that chair until 3 in the afternoon.
Oof.
That's no food.
Where we got to take a leak?
You hold it. Luckily now I've got 2 other guys with me right now. That
be back. Got a leak.
That we can do that. Up until those guys, I had almost 6 years of not getting up.
Oof.
And
that can be a little rough.
And believe me, there's some destinations we've had those auctions at where I've gone out and maybe experienced a little too much nightlife the night before.
No.
And maybe been a little under the weather. And,
no.
And still made it through a 6-hour session of doing commentary.
You're supposed to do that after the fact.
Well, we usually did after the fact. Then you end up, when it's a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, it's kind of tough when that Friday night comes around not to go out and have some fun with some of the other guys that are there.
I can vaguely remember a time you and me and the boss at the time went down south and kind of did something like that for Mother Deer. Yeah, those were good times. Do they still have all that going on?
Yep. Yeah, they actually.
I didn't know if COVID world screwed all that up.
It
or
did
not.
the last couple of years. They actually just went back. I think they had it was in Texas this year.
Like a parts expo or something.
It was Parts and Service Expo. From what I was told, our representative went. They said it's changed quite a bit, but they had classes like first thing in the morning. Then it was kind of a free for all, run around, see vendors. So it's pretty close to what we had. But
yeah,
but they said
we had classes from whatever 8 to 3 or 2 or whatever it was, and then we were free to go to whatever vendors we wanted to go to or get the hell out of there.
Right. Yeah. Well. And I remember that was long enough ago that you were not of age yet.
I was not. Yeah, that's the night that you and him wanted to go to Coyote Ugly. And I was like, fuck it, let's go. I'm like 19 or something at the time. And you walked in, or he walked in, you walked in. I made it 2 friggin' steps.
Yeah.
Hey, got your ID? Nope. You out.
Well, and you got to remember, Kyle was pretty fresh-faced at that point. He didn't have that squirrel hanging off of his
No.
chin.
Don't worry, it's going to go bye-bye here in a couple of weeks probably.
It's
getting obnoxious.
But we had a lot of fun down there that trip. It was
that was a fun
time. But yeah, we walked into Coyote Ugly, and the best part is, all I wanted to do was I was told I needed to get a T-shirt for my uncle.
That's what it was.
And so we walk in there, and I think we walked in. You got nailed right away, and me and Brian looked at each other. Well, we might as well go up and have a beer quick. He can stand outside. And here's Kyle standing outside the window of Coyote
like a puppy
Ugly,
dog,
looking at us.
Look at those ladies dancing on the bar, and I got to watch them out here. This is bullshit.
Then we come back out, and here's Kyle standing across the street in front of a tattoo parlor because
I
think he could get in there. He couldn't get him into the Coyote Ugly.
I thought about getting bullshit rid of.
Then we ended up going out to eat, and they never even looked at you twice.
No, that was the oh my
blue
God.
iguana, wasn't it? Or green iguana?
Green iguana.
Blue iguana, I think that's from Police Academy, isn't it?
Sure. Yeah, the green iguana.
Mm-hmm.
I just remember Brian looked at me and he goes, as long as you don't get caught, you got it, boss. That was a good time. I always remember some of them good times like that. And your wedding was a blast.
Yeah, well, and of course,
Jesus, that's been 10 years ago? 11? 12? 13? 15?
Be 14 this spring.
Jesus.
My boy will be 10 February 7th.
Holy cow.
And
I wasn't even close.
Yeah, it'll be 14 years. It's amazing. Now, like we were talking earlier, 25 years I've been at the dealership. You look back. You got to remember, I was 36 years old. I already worked at that dealership half my life. And we're coming up on that was 10 years ago. It's like, ooh, man. But you know what? And it's one of those, and you look back on it, and you go, man, it's a long time. Then you go, seems like I just started.
Not really.
I mean, there's a few people that'll remember this. I started 3 months before the fire, part-time. I started December 5th of 95.
Yeah, you told me
The
this.
shop burnt February 6th of 96.
I mean, in hindsight, that sucked. But if you look at what they got now, man, it really is a beautiful store.
Well, and it changed a lot because, I mean, when I started there was another guy hired the same day as me that was maybe 10 years older than me. 3 months later, shop burnt. He lost his tools. He left. I'm sitting here. I'm a young guy. I'm 18 years old. I'm just starting out.
Got to give it a chance.
And the big thing was there were a lot of guys. I mean, even the guys that had been there for years, they were all like, well, what do we do? What do we do from here? And the owners of the company at that time, and I'm going to mention names, John Rebhorn, George Oldham. I mean, I give them a lot of credit. I mean, I wouldn't be where I am right now if it hadn't been for their faith in me.
Agreed.
27 years ago, hiring me.
I mean, I can't say 27 years ago, but I can say the same thing.
But
18-year-old punk kid walking in there and
got me
they
started
give you a chance.
in a career. And I remember going in there. I remember the meeting after the fire. I mean, it was on a Monday, I did not go to work that day because I was working part-time, still going to school at Kish. And I had walked in that day, or the Friday before. I walked in at that point, I had a socket set that fit in the case like this. Four screwdrivers, a pair of pliers,
a bag of tools,
and a pair of work gloves. And I'll tell you what I was working on. We actually had the semi pulled in the middle of that shop, which you pulled that in the middle of the shop. You came in would be the south door, it'd be the west door. You go in the west door and you pull up. Well, you had your showroom was closest to 14. Then you had your parts department.
And then the shop.
And then there was like a little narrow area that was our break room and the service office. And then there was what we called the front shop, back shop, and then off to the side was the lawnmower shop. So I always worked back in that corner shop, and I had to come up through two other spots. Well, when you had the semi pulled in there, it was an old Mack with a lowboy. Well, my job at that point, because I was the young guy,
you're the part-time guy.
I was actually going through with a needle scaler and knocking all the rust off of the lowboy so the guys could weld new plates in and kind of fix it up. And I ended up that day, I left 2 screwdrivers because I was using those to get stuff out of the corners, and I left my gloves on the deck of the semi. That's all I lost out of the fire. I remember...
Not that you had much to lose,
right.
but that's fairly simple
There were
to
guys
replace.
that had 20, 30 years worth of tools in their toolboxes. And it got hot enough that, it burnt tractors down, tires gone. It burned them down. The Mack Semi, it got hot enough it melted the cylinder head on it, and the radiator looked like it just sagged.
Oh,
fiberglass hood was gone.
Oh, I can imagine.
And there was one guy that he had a drawer, of course, back then, all air impacts, and they were all aluminum bodies with steel guts inside.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he opens up this drawer for the impacts, and one was standing up with the handle up, and the rest of them, it was a molten puddle of aluminum, and it all had congealed together with one handle sticking out. And he goes like this, and he pulls it out. He goes, I don't think I want to hook an air hose up to that to see which one runs, because he had 4 impacts in one with one handle. And it's just that type of stuff. Torch tanks, oxygen acetylene tanks that got hot enough that it blew the safety there. And people don't notice, but on a torch tank there's actually a spot that's softer, so when they get hot, it's a relief valve. Well, there were 6 or 7 of them in the back shop tucked in the corner. They all blew. And of course that was my job. I remember the meeting afterwards. We were all in what is now the lower shop, the ag shop. We were all in there huddled up, and what are we going to do? And John and George go, we're going to stick with it. We're not letting the dealership fail because of this. This is just a setback. Those of you who want to stick around, you guys are more than welcome, and you have a job. Those who want to leave, you're more than welcome to leave. But
yeah, no hard feelings.
Yep, no hard feelings. If this is the end of the road for
happens.
you, but if you can stick with us, we're going to stick with you, and we will take care of you
best we can.
And of course, back then, we were family. Even though I'd only been there 3 months, I wasn't real comfortable. I was 18 years old. I got invited to the Christmas party. I started on December 5th. And I'm like, yeah, guys, I think I'm going to pass on that because, I remember watching certain guys. One of them is still there at the dealership. That I'm 18 years old, and I walk into the break room that first day, and these guys they all look like monsters. They're 20, 30 years older than me. I'm like, what? They're not going to want to talk to 18-year-old kid. And, I'm looking at them, these are old guys. And I'm sitting there going, 20 years old, 38, 40. They're around my age. And I sit there now, and I go, but I look back at that. When I got a new guy starting, and Kyle will vouch for this because he was one of the new guys that started. I try and go up and at least introduce myself right away and be a friend. At least start out, hey, got a question or you need some help with something. Hey,
let me know.
If
Right
I can help you out, I will. If I can't, I'll try and direct you to someone that might know.
If not,
I'm going to steer you in the wrong direction and let someone else catch you at it. So And that's the way I've gotten as I've gotten older. We start like playing tricks on each other. But you sit there and you look back over the years, you sit there and wonder, why did I choose this path? What was the reason for it?
Yeah.
Now the best part was, my dad actually applied for my job.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
My dad applied for the job that I ended up getting. My dad had worked at a factory in Union for, at that point, 25, 30 years. And he decided, and I was in high school, I was learning mechanics and that, and of course my dad was one of the guys that taught me a lot of stuff working on
Absolutely.
stuff. And he goes, what, I think it's time for me to get out of the factory and,
Do something else.
yeah, and Harvard Implement was hiring. He goes, yeah, even if I go up there, I'm a lawn and garden mechanic, maybe work on some ag stuff. And of course, back then it wasn't as intimidating. There wasn't the electronics and everything else. It was starting. Because I do remember there was a brand new 8300 that burned up in that building in that February.
Yeah, I think, it was brand new.
Yeah, brand new.
Yeah, brand new.
And the customer's trade-in was sitting right next to it.
Yep,
So
I remember somebody telling me
they lost
that.
2 tractors. The trade-in and the new one.
That poor fella.
And we...
or lady. Probably a fella.
Yeah. We... But my dad went and applied for the job. And he's telling John... I've got a kid, he's going to school down at Kish to be an ag mechanic or a diesel mechanic. Oh, really? Well, of course, John had a little bit of background with Kish. He used to be on the board down there and actually taught for a little while.
So he made a phone call,
So he knew the program, and he had told my dad, you know what? What's he doing now? And I was working for another little dealership in Woodstock at that point. And he goes, well... he might be interested in it, but they called Dad back and said, hey, you got the job. And my dad goes, nah, I don't want it. My dad, of course, just like me, that's why I'm still at the dealership. I fear change.
I think most people do.
And my dad goes, nah, I'm going to stay where I'm at. And my dad stayed there up until 14 years ago because he got laid off.
Correct.
The year that I got married from his factory job. But I ended up going in, and John looked at me and he goes, I sat with him for maybe 10, 15 minutes. He goes, you got a job. When can you start? And see, now we've made a full circle because it feels like we started here. And
we did.
We're back around.
We sure did.
But he goes, you got a job. When can you start? I go, well, I got to let my guy have 2 weeks' notice. And I'll start. He goes, okay, December 5th. And it's just been history since then.
Mine was, I was still in high school. I was working part-time jobs, and I went into work one day, Little Caesars, hot and ready, rock on, and they had hired a new manager. And funny story, quickly, I didn't know the manager, but today it's one of my good friends' sister-in-law. I didn't know it at the time.
Right.
And anyway, we were like fire and water.
Mm-hmm.
And I stuck my head in the door and said, yeah, I'm done. I don't have a job lined up, nothing. I can't deal with you anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So I literally went around and started putting in applications, and I thought, screw it. I'll run over to Deere. My dad does business there. John called me up and said, come in and sit down and talk to me. Okay.
And,
that was in 2006.
Yeah.
So right out of high school.
And that's the thing that scares me is when I look back at it. That was 2006, so that was only 10 years after I had started.
That's crazy.
And
it's been fun, though.
Yeah, it was. We always had fun. There were times me and you did not get along.
We butt heads just like anybody else.
Well, but that's also that's that whole dynamic too. Is when you start looking at it, it's different departments, and each department has a different agenda.
Oh, agreed.
And if the plans for that day don't follow one department's agenda versus the other,
all hell breaks loose.
Or certain people think that this one's more important than that one, and
my theory is this: you work with those people every day, 5, 6, sometimes 7 days a week, you're never going to get along every day, all day, unless you just got the I don't give a fuck attitude, and then you're going to be just fine, but everybody else is not going to be fine with you.
No. And
So it's going to happen.
Right.
It's inevitable.
And it doesn't matter if you're the top dog at the place
Or the peon.
or the guy down here sweeping floors. Something at some point in your world is going to change, or that day is going to change where you get upset, you get pissed off.
It happens.
And, that's just life.
That's just the way it goes.
If you sit there, the big thing is with me, I always take too much to heart. That's always my problem. It must be part of the German in me or whatever, where I have a hard time letting stuff
Maybe
go
the
sometimes.
wifey just made you soft.
Well,
Holy shit. We've been going quite a while now. We better wrap this up. Thanks for coming out.
no problem.
Appreciate it. This has been
really
fun.
appreciate it.
Yeah. You'll have to come back out again.
Well, definitely. Anytime, bud.
Awesome. Thanks, Max.
Yep.